always like to say, we can't assume that our viewer knows anything. There's someone in a hotel room that just got here today that flipped the TV on. You got to treat that viewer like you do all the rest of your viewers. So you're going to have to give them a little background. So every day you'd start out with missing teenager Brittney Wood still hasn't been found. Some people think maybe her uncle is responsible for her disappearance. Other people think it might be Wendy because she knew that she was going to tell on her uncle. I mean, these are all speculative ideas. I mean, you can't prove any of them, and you're just throwing it out there like everyone else is. But these are the questions still swirling.
Some see us as all victims, some see us as monsters. That's all because of the media sitting there saying the Wood family, and
the issue with my family, I believe what hurt me the most was I was very vigilant when I was a young mother, but I wasn't a dumb mother. I was not fixing to take my children to somebody I didn't know or hire this babysitter out the newspaper. I was more like, if you can't trust your family, who can you trust? So I always took them to the family. Now, looking back, they probably would have been more safe at the crack house.
It was reported to me that this was probably the largest incestuous family sex abuse case in the history of the state of Alabama at the time.
And then when you think you've got it figured out, oh, here comes that twist. Here comes that thing that throws everything you thought you knew out the door, and here you go down this rabbit hole.
While we was in Styx River searching, we thought we was starting to figure it all out, that we was in the right location. And then all of a sudden we got word to the organization that Brittney's last ping was not in Styx River. They had just picked up a ping out here in Grand Bay, which happened to be off this tower. Her last ping in Styx River was at 12:07 a.m. Then it pinged here at 1:47 a.m. So we left Styx River, we came out here with all the searchers, started at this tower where the last ping was located, and worked out, covered pretty much all of Grand Bay. The police, class kids, everybody was convinced that was a repeat text. She wasn't with the phone, nobody was with the phone. It just repeat text.
I find it interesting that some of the key players in this at that time were living in Grand Bay. And I would not be surprised if it turned out that the phone was used to make a call or a text.
We believe her phone come back here because there is proof, but we do not believe she actually drove back over here. Somebody brung her phone back over here. That's why I think Grand Bay was just a ditch site. They ditched her phone. They took whoever it is. This battery had to have been taken out of her phone in Grand Bay because it's not going to ping without it.
I work all kinds of civil and criminal cases anytime somebody's interested in reviewing cell tower information, call detail records to see how a particular device has been used. It usually comes up in pretty much any homicide case anymore, is that law enforcement's certainly interested in what's the user been doing with the device, where's the device been located. That becomes very important to those investigations.
It was deemed that this text message was a repeat text, but I don't know how that they know that that was a repeat text as opposed to someone text.
Let's take a look at the records.
Okay.
That phone's actually texting multiple people between 11 and 11:40. But at 1:47, there is a outgoing text message from her cell phone. I certainly can't say that that's a repeat text. There's no text messages on either side of that would lead me to believe that. There's no indications of any kind of error messages or anything like that. So, but at 1:47, there is a outgoing text message from her cell phone. In some Android cell phones, when you send a message from the Android device and it doesn't receive the message complete signal that it's supposed to receive, it will attempt to send it again. But that's something that occurs just within a couple of minutes, not over a period of a number of hours. So that simply doesn't make any sense with what we're seeing here in the records. With just a single text message, I have no reason to believe that that is a repeat text function of any kind.
So that's pretty key to find out. Yeah.
I think that would be an important step.
So today we went to see the cell phone expert, and then we spoke to him about this cell phone ping, this repeat text in Grand Bay. And they researched that phone, and they don't believe that that phone does repeat text.
Do we know who that text message was to?
We got the number.
You got the number? Good, because I got my little piece of paper with old numbers, and I might be able, I'd love to know who that last person was. Nothing about Bradley came up? Because that was the main focus. Or that might have been the missing information.
Because I know that she was having communications with this other man called Bradley. Is he mentioned in there at all?
I don't see the name Bradley in
Right,
here.
there was a lot of communication with Bradley, and they went to approach him. And by the time they got this information,
Sure.
he didn't remember those messages and he didn't have his phone.
Oh, very convenient.
I may be reading into this wrong, but in my head, that last message was someone Brittney knew, and Donnie and them did not. Maybe Bradley. She had to have been in Grand Bay, which is a whole new ball game.
The last voice call, which doesn't appear to have gone to voicemail, is at 11:29. The next series of events, starting at 11:36, is a series of incoming phone calls that all go to voicemail. And frankly, all appear to be from the same phone number. There is a name written above one of those entries of Andy.
The big deal is, at the time, Andy lived in Grand Bay. And he's the only one. The only deal we ever had with that is Andy wasn't friends with Donnie and Wendy and them. How did they all meet up? You know, when did that occur, and how and why would they meet up with Andy? Unless they dropped her off with Andy. So I don't know what to think about that. But it's a whole new avenue. See, we thought we had at least the pings leaked, you know. Oh, it was a repeat ping. They said that from get-go.
Do you want me to go and get the number?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm going to get my little book. I would really like to see who that is.
So it's 251 8915.
I already knew who it was. That's Bradley. Oh my Jesus. See, we always knew we cannot get tunnel vision, and I always knew we got tunnel vision, but it was so evident, or so you think. That's why you get tunnel vision. But now we have to open Grand Bay all the way back up. That ping from Grand Bay was to Bradley. Brittney left Styx River. Still want them GPR results, but now it's kind of shifted. At least I did get to talk to him, and the police interviewed him 3 times, and we all really come to the conclusion that Bradley did not have nothing to do with her disappearance. I guess we'll never know.
the end of March of 2012, a report was made with the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office by Randall Scott Wood, who was the maternal uncle of Holland, that her father, Donald Holland, who I often refer to as Donnie Holland because that's what he went by, was involved in an incestuous sexual abuse, if not affair, with his own daughter.
Me and my brother Scott is very close. He's the one that busted this case wide open, is Scott Wood. He lived out of state. He was here on work. The company closed there. There was a company here. What better place than to move in with your sister? And so he moved in with him. And he started finding out things and looking on the daughter's computer. And he found a message that said, you give a good blowjob to be 12 years old. And that's what broke the case wide open. And so Scott called me and said, the police are on their way. I need somewhere to live. And I said, well, come on over. And when he come, 3 days and nights we sat in my living room without sleeping, eating, or anything. He was filling me in every detail. He had been a detective for months.
So after conducting the initial interview with Holland, myself and the social worker sat down with her older sister and conducted a formal interview with her. And I remember asking her, do you believe your sister? And she said, yes. And then I followed up with, well, why do you believe your sister? And she said, because he did it to me.
Following the suicide of Donnie Holland, uncle to missing teen Brittney Wood, his son Donnie Holland Jr., along with more members of the Wood family, have been arrested in conjunction with the child sex ring.
There was a graphic that was put together with all the faces, trying to piece them all together and how massive it was. The aunt, the uncle, the missing person, this, that, and there's this whole chain of people, and it was used to tell the story.
We're pretty much stuck with what the media put out there about the whole family and the whole Brittney missing, and they took the shine off her when it should have stayed on her, pretty much. She's just like any other missing person, regardless of the charges being against our family. They wasn't against her, and she's the one that's missing, so she should have been front and center, but it's not always how you think it should be.
Of course, in the news business, we're always gonna, the trial of the century or whatever, you're gonna make it sound bigger than what it is. But it was still, if people didn't talk about it, they at least, they were aware of it.
Every time somebody with our name is brought up in the media, they plaster it everywhere. Oh yeah, this is the evil ones. Oh yeah, they're bad people. Oh yeah, all of them.
Wendy Holland and her twin sister Mindy Kent have been arrested on multiple counts of child abuse, along with Mindy's husband, Dustin Kent.
The family was absolutely in turmoil at that time. Children were being taken out of the homes. There were, being placed with other family members. So again, it had to be a very chaotic situation within the family, because the offenders oftentimes were the parents or aunts and uncles of these children. They were having to be placed with other individuals during the course of our investigation.
Then it all starts making sense, because you go, well, maybe Brittney was one of the victims of that incest ring. And she went to confront this uncle, because the uncles, the aunts, and all those who went through the court system were people that ended up being, charged and convicted for allowing the younger relatives, pimping them out for sex.
It's no longer a person, it's a story. Kind of feels like you sold your soul for a story, in a sense, Like you have no humanity left. You got family over here bawling their eyes out, crying, and don't know what's going on, or if they'll find anything, or if this will go on for 20 years or 20 more days. Nobody knows. But y'all don't care.
When you have a missing child, I remember when it rained. It took me years. The rain was so awful. Because I remember back then when it rained, I would lay in the bed and just pray to God that she wasn't getting rained on. I don't know why it bothered me so bad. When it started to get cold, she disappeared when it was hot. Didn't seem like the heat bothered my mental status so much, but when it started getting cold, I actually put a Facebook post that said, "Brittney, if you're out there, I hope you're loved and warm and fed and dry." And that's what you want for your child when they're missing, but you have no idea.
With any missing persons case, we knew that this was a major investigation, not only us, but Mobile County. And with it being a large-scale investigation, nobody really wanted her going missing in their jurisdiction. Therefore, they would have to be responsible for conducting the investigation, dedicating resources, whether that be in the form of manpower or forensics, you name it. Nobody really wanted that, but at the same time, obviously we have a fiduciary responsibility to investigate any crime that occurs and that's reported.
I think that once they realized that this was really probably a murder, certainly by every stretch suspicious, they were so far into it they couldn't back out. And they just decided to take the position that they didn't do anything wrong. They did all they could. But I don't believe that. I don't think that they even deserve their jobs, for real, any of them. I don't got nothing nice to say about law enforcement. Let's just put it that way. I think they're dirty, and I think they're cheap, and I think, you know, they think they're better than everybody, and they get to pick and choose who they get to care about and who they don't. They need to do their job, at least try to do their job, or at least give us the information so we can do their job for them. Because getting anything from the police officers, investigators, nothing. They won't give us nothing.
So yeah, it was difficult to talk about, but it was a big story. I mean, it was a huge story. It dominated all the local stations and beyond. I mean, I'm really surprised that there hasn't been more interest nationally and internationally, except maybe it's a pretty disgusting subject when you talk about a child sex ring, but it does make you listen, doesn't it?
One victim in particular remembered losing her virginity at the age of 3 to her own father. They were forced to perform oral sex on each other and on other adults, on uncles and aunts. It was really bad.
I remember very clear when I first found out, and really found out, the heinous crimes that Donnie Holland had committed and who he committed them against and how slick he had committed them. It was hard for my brain to accept these facts because I've just known him my whole life. But as soon as that shock wore off, there it came, what everybody expected from me. I actually remember saying to myself, Donnie, you better be glad you're already dead. And I really felt grateful because he was dead and I wasn't going to prison for it, you know. Because if he wasn't dead, he was fixing to be.
I guess that was the day that we really could come out and say what people were thinking about the child sex ring and the allegations, and when all of that came out. It was very clannish. No one was talking. I think through a lot of this, her mom, Chessie, was probably the most vocal of everybody. To the point of where I guess sometimes we wondered, is she too vocal? What's going on here? Does she know more than she's really saying?
You have to understand, I don't think for a while there, a day went by that there wasn't some mention in the news about it. And they were doing daily coverage. It was like the O.J. Simpson case of Mobile, Alabama. Seriously. And it was so much coverage that you heard about it, you formed that opinion. They're all sick, they're all disgusting.
You can't walk in the store and buy a loaf of bread without seeing you and everybody, you know, on the front page. There's Derek. I mean, it was an everyday affair. See, 5th man arrested, that's Billy Brownlee.
And in a shocking twist, Brittney's brother Derek Wood has also been arrested, along with a family friend, Melton Morgan. Donnie and Wendy Holland's friends, Jennifer Moore and William Brownlee, have also been charged in connection with the child sex ring. As the arrest count grows, we will keep you updated as this story develops.
Wendy even assisted her daughter in having sex with grown men because she didn't know what she was doing. So Wendy would guide her and teach her own daughter how to have sex with men and how to pleasure them. It is all very, very disturbing. And this didn't take place with just the female children in the family. It also took place with the boys. The boys were often victimized as well by both men and women in the family, and other individuals who were allegedly being contacted on Craigslist for casual encounters.
Her brother, for example, he wasn't just a suspect and tried and convicted, he was also a victim. I mean, I remember in court him talking about them making him or asking him to have sex with other relatives when he was 14, 15, 16. You know, he's just going through puberty, he's a teenager, you know, I don't know what he was thinking at that time, but he's just a young boy. You know, he probably didn't know what was right or wrong either. So he was a victim, but he was also later on, I think he did things as an adult.
This call is from a correction facility and is subject to monitoring and recording.
So with respect to Donnie and Wendy and the level of abuse towards you, what age were you? When did that all start?
I would say probably around the age of 6 or 7.
And how long did it go on for?
Quite a couple of years, probably all the way to my early teenage years. It would be like some friends of theirs, older women or something would come over and they would get involved, and you know, Donnie would like take pictures and stuff and kind of coerce me into doing what I was doing. But as far as family members, it was just Donnie and Wendy.
Derek Wood was one of a very sad case. I remember sitting down and interviewing him at the Mobile Police Department, and he was one of those cases where he was a child victim himself who later turned into an abuser when he became of age.
I had went down to the department to help ask some questions about Brittney, and I had revealed what happened to me and everything else that I knew about other people to stop them, you know, to try to shut them down and for them to no longer be able to hurt people or children. My life's been a mess ever since, and still to this day, they won't help me. They won't let me go to any rehab. They won't let me go to a halfway house. They won't let me get no mental evaluations or anything. I'm just a monster, I guess, in their eyes.
We work with the ages of 16 to 22. They're the kids that are falling through the cracks of the system, aging out of DHR, foster care. Parents are selling them for drugs, or they're selling them to pay bills and different things like that, or in prison. This is our mother-baby room for any female that comes in that's pregnant, that's been trafficked, or that's been homeless or abused. And we have a crib that we put up once the baby is born. This is our boys' room. We have 2 boys that are in here, and boys are trafficked as much as females, if not more. They're on the rise. If you're looking at kids that have been abused and that have been basically trafficked, sold, or gave to someone throughout their whole life and gone through that type of trauma, you have to look at reprogramming their mind, because otherwise they're going to stay in the same format that they've been trained to be in. It's like parents give what they've been given. If they don't know any better, they only give you what they know. So if a parent has been trafficked, just like in one of the stings I sat in on, there's a 54-year-old lady that was in that sting that was being sold. Well, come to find out, her mother was a traffic victim and her grandmother was a traffic victim. It went down from generation to generation. It was passed down. So you've got to look at trying to help those kids that have trauma before they get to the prison system. Because there's a lot of people that are in prison that really should have therapy and shouldn't be there.
Based on my research and my study of this case as a whole, I was able to track this physical and sexual abuse back 3 generations within this family.
My kids loved to go to church, and they had a great kids program, and they loved their youth director. Brittney had wrote that youth director that they all loved, that he touched me, and they gave it to me. And it was a scrap piece of paper. That's Ronnie. That's all about that case.
Can you read what it said?
Man 44 gets life sentence for rape of child. Ronald Wayne Robertson receives maximum sentences after multiple convictions for attacking a 9-year-old girl. That 9-year-old girl just happened to be my daughter. Brittney, when she was 8 years old, was raped by her step-grandfather, my mother's husband. I wasn't gonna take it laying down. She's a little kid, so the adults had to step in and help these children. So, went and reported it to the police. I had her check rape test, and they found that, thank God, my baby wasn't massively injured, but they could tell something had happened. We encouraged Brittney to go to court, not just for herself, but other kids that may be hurt by this man, and she decided to go really for the other kids. When Brittney got up on that stand, the DA turned around and looked at me, and he said, "We just won it." And I said, "How do you know?" And he said, "Look at the jury box." And when I turned and looked at that jury, everybody in that jury was crying. The judge subsequently, during sentencing, gave him life plus 10 years. And he should die in prison. I remember back when I was in my 20s, it would make Donnie in his 30s, Wendy and Mindy in their late teens, early 20s, used to all live together in a house. It was my mother, her boyfriend, Ronnie Robertson, Donnie Holland, my sister Wendy that he was married to, my sister Mindy. Ronnie was already offending, and then he has these other people in the house. But we have a lot of belief that this is where it all started, where Ronnie opened the door and showed them how to become monsters.
Did this all seem normal, this abuse that was happening at the age of 6 or 7?
Yeah, I guess you could say that, you know, being at such a young age and by somebody that you're supposed to love and somebody that's supposed to love you to teach you things and show you things, I guess, yeah, it did seem normal, you know.
I had one victim who, if a man smiled at her, she thought, well, that means he wants to have sex with me. And she would then pursue it. She didn't know any better.
When you're sexually abused in that way, it feels wrong, but then you also feel an obligation and a love for that person. We have lots of people who report still loving their parents, even though their parents sexually, physically, psychologically abuse them. There's something sort of deep and ingrained in that parent-child relationship, that caregiver relationship, that when sexual abuse is introduced, then that it can have profound effects on the psychological abilities of that person.
A lot of times while these orgies were going on, because it wasn't just one-on-one, a lot of times there were multiple individuals involved with these children all at the same time, all in the same room, all in the same bed for that matter. Oftentimes, Donald Holland was reported to take pictures and videotape these different sexual acts taking place with his children, with these adults. These children had no chance. They led what we would consider to be a normal childhood. There were often times that the victim described when she got off the school bus in the afternoons, she didn't know who her dad was going to have her have sex with that evening because it was somebody different every day.
We discovered in Alabama that there's a large percentage of victims that we have that are children, and many of those children are victims of what is called familial trafficking. And so that's when a close family member will sell their child to a friend, a neighbor, whomever, for drugs, for alcohol, maybe to pay rent or buy food. But that family member is exploiting a younger member of their family, which is a very sad scenario indeed.
One of the child victims was sent across the country with a truck driver and forced to have sex and oral sex with him on his truck route across the country and back.
I'm surprised they made it out alive, let alone anything else. You know, some of them didn't make it out alive, but they're so messed up. They might be alive and breathing, but this has probably changed who they were for the rest of their life. And they decided to change these kids as kids. They didn't even really give them the opportunity to see who God meant them to be in this world.
I'm glad it's over for the children who suffered, but their lives are fucking ruined. You know, they're ruined. They really are. Those kids are ruined for the rest of their lives. And there ain't nothing nobody can do about it. And ones we can't even find.
I'm the second oldest cousin. My brother really isn't all that intelligent. So I kind of feel like it fell on me to try and guide my cousins, and I feel like I failed. I feel like I should have been able to do more. Most of them are in jail. Things have happened to them. I have no idea what happened to Brittney. I seen her a few days before all this happened, and I don't know what happened. I feel like I should have been there. She should have been able to tell me anything. But I just didn't know. I knew nothing. And I truly feel like I failed him.
His sister goes missing. He was also involved in all the stuff that was going on the sex crime side of it. But he was a victim of that. He got charged because he was technically an adult the last time there was any accusation of any inappropriate activity.
When you were convicted of, say, abuse, what age are we talking about?
I don't necessarily know when they charged me for when they said it happened. I think they said I was like 18 or something like that. I can't remember.
How do you go that route with him when he himself was a victim of all of it? I feel like his whole life has been lost because of this mess. And here he is with all of the trauma that he's gone through, both as a child and as an adult, and he has no resources to get him help.
When you're dealing with this complex trauma where somebody is experiencing this exploitation and this abuse over and over and over and over again during a time in their life where they're most formidable, and either by somebody or allowed to be abused by somebody that they should have been able to trust, it creates a complex mental health issue that takes professional people to work with and help them come out of that. A messy situation where sometimes the lines are blurred between victim and suspect.
And they did him dirty. And that's why he keeps going back to jail now, because he will not register as a sex offender. He was a victim, and he was being made to do things, and they lied to him. They said they'd make a deal, not, you know. And he gave their statement. He helped put Wendy away, and they still pinned it on him.
I believe that if you look at the number of individuals that were involved, that Donnie was able to pull into his web that he wove, a lot of the individuals were close friends of the family, neighbors, individuals that he had known his entire life, in-laws, you name it. And he was able to convince these people that this kind of behavior was acceptable in some way. And how he was able to do that, or how he coaxed them or coached them along the way, is beyond me. But he did this his entire life. But Donnie and not to make excuses for what he did, because what he did was heinous and atrocious, but Donnie was also a victim himself. He was a victim of sex abuse. The victims can oftentimes turn into abusers themselves. However, Donnie became one of the worst of the worst.
But I still hold Wendy Holland to the same standard as Donald Holland. I've been told by plenty of detectives that she started out a victim. They truly believe this, and I believe that also. But I do believe that one day came where she turned from victim to predator, and that's the day that I have a problem with.
I'm standing behind the house of what I have named the House of Horror. This is where most of the crimes happen towards the children. This is where Donnie and Wendy resided for 20 years of their marriage. And if I could, and I'm not, but if I could and get away with it, I'll burn it to the ground.
The thing that you actually got charged with, did you feel coerced to do it by Donnie?
It was, you know, like I said, giving me a good little bit of money. He let me drink. I remember him asking me to drink a little bit with him before the whole thing went down. And I would say between the intoxication, the bribery, and just the way he could manipulate people's minds and intimidate folks, I think it'd probably be a bundle of all that put together. If I hadn't drawn what I drawn, and Donnie being there that day, that it would have never happened. I've never had it spontaneous bounce into my mind to want to go do that. Never crossed my mind.
We also see individuals who practice grooming. Their goal is to sort of, for one, have a victim who's going to comply and not fight back or report it. And two, have those feelings of, this person does nice things for me and I like them, and they look out for me and they make me feel good, and they also do this terrible thing to me. And when we have this sort of cognitive dissonance, I feel this allegiance, so maybe this is they want you to doubt it, right? Maybe this is a good thing, maybe this is okay, this abuse, maybe this is just how people show their love. Offenders want that sort of psychological trauma to happen, so you're likely to stay around. You're less likely to report it. We also see, when we're talking about people who sexually abuse boys and men, the goal of the perpetrator is often to get an erection in the victim, to make the victim aroused, because there's this notion, right? If my body likes it, then obviously I'm supposed to like it and it's not bad. And this adds an additional level of trauma for men.
You know, there was a whole ring of children that was involved in this, and none of them said that I've done anything with them except for one. And, you know, after that time that I do remember, I knew that it was wrong. So it never, I knew that it would never happen again. I didn't go as far as to sleeping with the said person, but we did touch, you know, certain places and stuff like that. As I got older and I learned that it was wrong, that, you know, it really, really messed with my head, and I didn't want nobody to know that about me. And it really backfired on me, because, you know, they only got really one side of the story. They just blew it up and just made me look like a straight monster, and they just don't know my story, I guess. I never intended to hurt anybody. I never intended to, you know, change somebody's life, and I might not never get the word out to this world, but God knows my heart that wasn't me. Being what I was taught at such a young age, it's hard to not be programmed. You know, if you buy a little puppy dog and you teach him to bite everybody that comes through that fence, more than likely when that dog gets older, that's what he's going to do.
Stuff can happen in your family and you not ever realize it. You know, you don't know what goes on with your family 24/7. And like I said, you know, Donnie, I knew Donnie since we were 10 years old and never had a clue that he was like that at all.
It seemed normal when he come over to pick them up, you know? Nobody ever gave off any kind of signs. The boys didn't, nothing. There was no signs whatsoever that that man was harming them, period.
I myself believe I should have known, but I did not know. And no one close to me knew. And I believe it was one of the most painful things we had to get through was they got over on us that bad.
Why did you feel like you couldn't reach out to your mum?
To give the direct answer, or because I didn't want to lose my mother. I knew my mother would probably bypass the police and straight kill them for hurting me the way they did.
The sex crimes investigation absolutely provides a motive for Brittney Wood's disappearance due to the fact that A, she was a victim, B, we were attempting to contact her, and there are text messages that support the fact that she was willing to speak with us regarding the allegations. Therefore, C, she was a prime candidate at that time to be taken advantage of and disposed of. She was a liability, and she was at risk of exposing this ring and exposing Donald Holland, who was the ringleader.
My ex-sister-in-law is still in prison with Wendy and Mindy. I got her a note into the prison asking her to watch them. When I get the letter back, she was telling me everything about how they're laughing, they're taunting it about the things that happened to her, the things that they did to her, and how long that it went on. Said it was more like a tortured her, just tortured her in any way that could be tortured. Probably some things you probably wouldn't want me to say, you know, on, you know, film, like inserted things, just, oh God, it was just a mess, just things that would be unbearable for the human mind to even process. That's just what I was told. She was tortured horribly and like for hours, is what the girl said. And she held to her story even after she got out of prison. She still tried to come back and give the same story. So they didn't want to listen. So
Who didn't want to listen?
the authorities, whoever she went to, the detectives, and I didn't, that's what we don't understand, you know. I've seen more cases that wasn't as big as this and them work twice as hard on it.
There was a message received, actually not too long ago. Wendy and Mindy killed Brittney and Donnie, and a police officer was involved, and then after they got done killing Brittney, that they went and dumped her body and come back in and had sex on top of the sheets after they killed her on them.
Here's a letter from Mindy Kent. I decided to write them one time just to see what they would say. Oh no, this is from Wendy Holland. I wrote Mindy and I got a letter back from both. Hey, I read the letter you wrote, Mindy. It's been so long since any of us has talked. Like Mindy said, God has answered our prayers for our family to get back together. Like you said, God said to forgive. I forgive you for blaming me about Brittney. Chessie, I told you from day one I don't know where she is. I'm still trying to forgive Donnie. It's hard to. I pray she'll be found. I've lost so much also. My 3 kids, I can't talk to them. It's all I. There is no, I'm sorry, Chessie. There is no. She does say, Chessie, I ask you to please forgive me for not knowing anything about Brittney. That's about the only thing but the whole letter, if you just look at it from afar, that's all you see, I. And that's one of her issues, I think.
I remember when other family members were brought to trial or were charged with crimes, then you said, well, she's probably next. Because, you know, she was the mother and relatives with the same last name were involved in this, so she must have known.
And so she's kind of a tragic figure in all this because she's the grieving mother who still wants to know what happened to her child if she doesn't know. But she knew the players, and she knew them really well, and she knew, no doubt, what they were capable of if she didn't witness it personally. So you're conflicted in how you feel about her.
In